Hey everyone, today I'm talking about secondary VA disability claims. This one's super important because a secondary um, service-connected disability can really can increase your rating by quite a bit. In fact, anyone who has 100% VA disability, you very likely have a secondary or two in your portfolio of VA disability claims. And why is that? Probably because a lot of us didn't go to the doctor and we were only able to get a few things service connected. And then once we get those one or two things service connected and we start getting a little bit older and everything's connected to each other. So you're definitely going to have other disabilities that are connected to your primary, regular service connected ones. And that's just how it works. So in this video, what I want you to get out of it is I want you to understand, number one, what a service-connected disability is. I want you to understand a little bit about how you can use a strategy of determining how to connect secondary disabilities to your primaries so that you can get the increase that you deserve. So with that being said, what is a secondary condition? It's pretty self-explanatory, but essentially, secondary conditions are conditions that either cause or aggravate or are caused or aggravated by your primary service connected disability. So like a good example is, a mental health rating from maybe some sort of chronic pain that's service connected to that you currently have. That's a good example. Other ones could be like sleep apnea secondary to chronic sinusitis, or back pain to a service-connected knee pain, ankle pain. I mean, anything where your disability causes you to do something different or to try and compensate for the pain that you receive, and that compensation makes you, do something different. Like, for instance, you don't walk on your ankle right. It could impact, or when you're standing on your other ankle, it could cause some ankle problems in your other foot. So those are secondary service connection conditions. What about if your secondary connected disability causes a third? Would it still be something that you can obtain a disability for from the VA? Absolutely. Third, fourth, fifth connected disabilities could be all connected to the primary. So that's a huge opportunity for veterans who have disabilities to connect them. But as you'll see, in the common theme in here is that you got to be able to make the nexus. So before moving on to the nexus, I will talk quickly about why, what the specific requirements are for, proof of a secondary condition. And I'm really going to pull this right out of 38 CFR. It's 3.310 alpha and 3.310 bravo. So, and this is just talking about secondary service connection. It's right there in 38 CFR. And it pretty much explains that number one for the A section is that secondary condition can be granted service connection if it's proximately due to the result of a primary service connected condition. So it's right there in the rule book. If you can obtain evidence from your doctor or however you do it, and we'll talk a little bit about that here in a minute, if you can do that, you can connect a current condition that you have to a primary condition that's already service connected, and you'll get the max rating or whatever rating they give you. You'll get that. You can, even if it goes all the way up to 100, you can essentially get 100% rating for service connection on a secondary condition. 3.310 bravo in the 38 CFR, it states that if a non-service connected condition is aggravated by a service connected condition, the increase in severity may be service connected. So what does that mean? That means that if your secondary condition may not have been caused by your primary, but maybe it's aggravated, that counts. That can put points on the board. That will work. The main thing you just need to know here is the evidence that's needed. And we already know that for regular disability claims, we need to have the big three. We need to have number one, we need to have a current diagnosis. Number two, we need to have it be connected, or we need to have an in-service event or injury. And then number three, we need a nexus between the two. But in service-connected conditions, really all you need to do is a nexus between your primary and your secondary and that current diagnosis, of course. So, so why are secondary conditions often denied? And this is an easy answer. They just don't have the right evidence. It's not spelled out very well. I see a lot of people applying for secondary service-connected disabilities, but they forget to get the evidence that they need to connect the two. We're not going to do that here. We're going to make sure that we got it. So knowing that the reason that they're often denied is because of medical evidence, let's talk about the key to getting a secondary condition service connected, and that's really just establishing the nexus. Now, secondary conditions are a bit tougher than direct service connection because we don't have any proof in our medical file from the service saying that this happened during service, and even a buddy letter may not be able to help us out in this instance, right? Like, we're basically telling the VA that we think our back pain is the result of our knee pain, and we're not doctors, so we can't just ask a buddy to do a quick lay statement to say that they should be connected. But what we can do is we can establish a clear nexus by just getting strong evidence. And this is one of those times where I encourage veterans to A, talk to your private doctor, or B, get a professional doctor that does these Nexus letters for, maybe not a living, but they have experience in doing this. Because what they'll do is they'll take a look at your private medical records, your service treatment records, and they'll use their own medical research, and they'll help you link the two. Because that's essentially what you're going to need. Now, you can use your own personal doctor to do this, but you're going to have to educate them on what the VA wants, and they have to really understand the process. So in these circumstances, I oftentimes encourage veterans that are seeking secondary service connection to, most certainly consider getting that private nexus from a doctor that knows how to write them, knows how to review your records, knows how to interview you and talk about your conditions and what you're dealing with, and they can write an adequate and well-articulated letter, depending on their opinion of the matter, to help you win that secondary connection. There are a lot of doctors out there, and I know it's tough to find them. I've searched for them on my own. I will eventually start leaving links to doctors that I think are worthwhile at using their services. But for the time being, you just have to kind of go on Google and just find one, or just use your private doctor to do that for you. So in a nutshell, or in summary, secondary service conditions can be a great way to increase your rating, to get the rating that you deserve, but you got to make sure that you don't fall trap to getting them denied. And essentially what you need is medical evidence.